Okay, so I put the front of the trunk back in a little bit, got it all the way up to the shock area and kind of leveled it off where I need it. And I'm going to start building this rack and everything. I decided to kick all that off. I'm going to weld in all these spots and then just kind of smooth this out and clean this up. And I think what I'm going to ultimately end up doing, sorry about the wind there, is building a box up a little bit so I can mount the air tank right under the spare tire location. I do want it under the car and hidden. And it's because ultimately my plan is to put a piece across here that will have some push buttons on it that I can pop that panel off and access all of this stuff as needed. So that is my plan to do that. And if that tank were sitting, you know, right in here, then that would completely block that panel, and I would be playing hell to get to these bags or anything if I needed to change them out at any given point, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of cleaning up everything in here, and I knew I had some fiberglass work going on over here, so I was like, wow. So I have a big hole right there. And so I got to clean that up, and so I just dug all the fiberglass crap that was in there out of it, and then took a little piece of poster board and just kind of formed it around the general form, shall we say, of that piece. Transferred that over to metal that I had laying around. I believe it was a spare piece from the trunk here, and boom, there is that. We're gonna take and weld all that in and smooth that out, and we should be good there. So that is the plan right now, and then we will get to work on the whole I'm gonna build kind of like a cage so I can have something to mount the covers on, shall we say. So we are boxing off the C-notch, the monster notch here. And by doing so, I started off with a piece of 1/2-inch square tubing, square stock, and welded that level across the back wall of the rear seat. That gave me a good starting point, right? Then I built 2 frames, one that goes up here, you know, cut a bar here, cut a bar back, and duplicated that exactly on both sides. Once I got that, you know, configuration figured out, and all it was is I just, you know, looked at the angle, said, yeah, that's the angle I want. Before I welded them completely in, I took some poster board, shoved it up in there, and I want you to see how incredibly tight this is, right? You gotta see this. So yeah, that's literally the wheel well, and then there's my panel, and it is that tight, but it is also super secure. So I have now a wall there, if you will, that will keep rain. If I ever get caught in rain, it'll keep most of the rain up out of the trunk area, which is what I was after ultimately. I will drop some seam sealer and stuff in there and whatnot, but with that said, that's what I was doing. And went ahead and did a crossbar here, and once I've gotten that set up, that kind of that's framing me out where I want to be. And then I have a piece of diamond aluminum that I went ahead and cut to fit, and up there like a shelf, and then just locked up on there, and that is exactly what I wanted. So that's going to give me great coverage, you know, protecting, you know, keeping the elements out. Now I'm going to put a front piece, of course, up against the back seat. There's a couple of pieces I've got that I'm going to have to cut out for that as well, but now I get to do the fun part where I get to frame this lower stuff all in. I would love to do a one piece on this, which I may attempt to do. I don't know. That's a lot. I don't know if you could see this. That's a lot of curving down and then curving across, and it's I don't know if that's going to make any difference or not, but I definitely want a structure piece across the front of this lip, because now that I've cut the trunk out, its support is not as rigid as it used to be. Of course, I mean, it's got a good solid support, right? But I assure you, by doing a bar across there, a bar section across that, it'll be much stronger. So that is where I am at the moment. So we're gonna go ahead and let's make that bar. All right, so I've begun forming my piece for the bottom of this framework, and I basically had a piece of 3/16 cold roll steel sitting around, and I went ahead and kind of formed it. I'm sure you could do this with like a coat hanger or whatever, but this kind of gives me my angles that I was after. And I'm gonna go straight across and up and such, right? So the idea being, I could take that and then get a guesstimated length and whatnot, and then start notching into the 1/2 inch square tube there. And all I'm doing is basically cutting slits in it to get the angles that I want, right? Once I've got the angles I want, I can weld all that back in together, and boom. So put more slits on. Now I'll do slots on this side to start getting this to bend the other direction, and I'll start having one piece. So okay, so we've started building the piece for the bar that's going to go across the floor of the trunk here. What it did though is it lands right across this zone right here, right? And then goes up right in this pocket. And I need that pocket to be open for the tank. So did a little bit of a inspection and kind of some measuring and all that good stuff. And I decided I'm going to build a ring that goes around this entire perimeter of the spare tire area. And what that'll do is I can weld it directly to the floorboard, and of course that's going to give that some more rigidity, which is what I was after in the first place, because again, we've lost all this metal. So I need any kind of support that I can get, you know, in this area. So started doing some cuts, and yeah, that's how I do it. And I don't know, some people say, well, you can just heat it and bend it, but I'm afraid of the wrinkles or something, and I want it to look a little bit, you know, I want it to be super clean. So this is what I did. A few cuts later, and we are starting to get into the pocket. So that is what I'm doing at the moment, and let me do some more cuts on the rest of this bar, and I'll wrap it around, and I'll show you what it looks like. I built this piece earlier, right? And I went ahead and decided I wanted to mount my tank here after all in the long run. I wanted to tuck it as far as I could under the car, but at the same time, if you take a look there, it was getting pretty low. And I was a little concerned about nailing the drain valve or the petcock or whatever you want to call it. And so I had to bring it up into the trunk area, which I kind of figured I was going to. So what I did is I went ahead and did that, and you saw me build this piece here. Well, I had to build a secondary one, and then I utilized the metal that was originally the spare tire holder. So I went ahead and utilized that and built this piece. Now this is built out of, gosh, there's probably 6-7 different pieces. Now I had to do a new ring, another ring exactly like the one that is below it, so it would match up. And then went ahead and put this, welded this all together, and you know, decided to throw some skim coats across it. Still got some rough spots, and I'm gonna have to re-skim it one more time. You know, I don't know why, but all in all, I think that looks you know, pretty good. So we are going to go with that. And let's see, so we did the cardboard cutout for the back panel piece. I basically trimmed this piece up to match the trunk as much as possible, or that back filler panel, right, as much as possible. had to make up for the hump, you know, of course, where the spare tire is, and then also did a slight bit smaller because we're going to put a trim lock around the whole piece that will help seal it from the outside elements. So there's that, and this piece now transferred over to metal looks like that piece. So that's the piece of aluminum. We just used some diamond plating that I've got, and went ahead and went with, because I want this panel to be an access panel, I want to be able to access any of the airbag shocks, air lines, whatever that may need to be changed out at a later time. I put these quick clips, these speed clips, push button, that attaches to that guy right there, or that guy right there, or even that guy right there. So I have 6 of them. Took a lot of time to finesse that particular cover and get that to all line up with the tabs and buttons and such. So it took a little bit of time. So now I'm to the top plate. I'm working on the top plate here. Again, same concept. Took a piece, stuck it up there, had to do some notching and whatnots in it. I don't know if I showed this in an earlier video, I'll double check that, but anyhow, put some notches in it to make up for the pillars, you know, the back posts and everything, and to give me a little bit of wire clearance. And then decided I'm going to mount my my VU4 AccuAir system, ride system right there, right? So just did a lot of predetermination on where everything is going to go. A lot of things you have to look out for and such, like airline bending. You know, you can only give these things so much flex, you know, before they go over and go bad. But I think I've got, she's going to be tight, but I think I've got this, and I'm gonna, of course, I'm gonna grommet this and protect these airlines and everything for everything it's worth. But that'll keep everything inside of the C-notch section, shall we say. And when I get this all covered up, I just kind of wanted you to see the top of this panel, you know, so you could get an idea that these two here are going to be your these outside ones are the input lines from the tank that are going to feed into the valve. And then, of course, these are your outputs to each bag individually. Control unit that everything plugs into, sits right beside it, and then we'll route all the wires and everything down, you know, and up front, and power, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, that reminds me, I got to do the switch. Shoot. Okay. Well, one more thing I got to add to my list of things that I have to do. But for now, kind of just wanted to show you this real quick. Lots of stuff going on here. Again, lots of fabrication. I mean, that fabrication was fun. The ring was fun, but the trunk is like rock solid. So that's what it's all about. I'm trying to seal off the whole trunk area as much as possible, and that should do it. Woo-wee, is there a lot going on here today. So we have went in and we have matted out, put some deadener in everywhere. I have went in, sorry I had to kick around there, went in and plated the front of the C-notch, which is, this is directly behind the rear seat, as if you couldn't tell. You can kind of see it there. Went ahead and did the some foam in here, just doing some insulation and whatnot. And you can now see some of the electronics for the air ride system. It's all been mounted on the top plate, and we'll go in the trunk here and show you what that looks like. So ignore my camera work here as I walk around. La-da! Yeah, lots going on here. So try to walk through this a little bit. There's been a lot, and I haven't been filming as much as I probably should have, and I did spray some adhesive which this stuff looks terrible. I don't know. Anyhow, I gotta clean this up now because I sprayed a bunch of adhesive up here. Anyhow, there we go. VU4, AccuAir VU4 with the speed switch. All mounted up. Got a relay mounted up. I think I've talked about that already, not really sure, but got my LEDs hooked up from my speakers, and we'll show you that later on. Everything has been painted and rubber coated on the bottom side of the car. Got all my air lines now routed. Went ahead and P-clamped everything in, so everything is now secure and safe. Rubber lined the whole floor, and then mounted my pumps, which are now grommeted through the floorboard. There's the tank cover that is removable, so I can access the tank for anything. This was all hand built, of course, you know. I have pictures that I'll show you. So yeah, this is all going. I do have a cover that's going to go on here, which is actually hidden right here. So I'm going to do that after I'm waiting on some paint to show up, because I got an idea. I'm going to paint that, and then yeah, we'll set that back on there. So right now, that is where the car sits. She is functioning. I've got power. Bags are aired up. Everything about it is just killing. You know, works freaking great. And right now, she's sitting at ride height. Give you a perspective there. So yeah, that is ride height when I'm cruising. Or I can bring the front down lower, or bring the back down a little lower. But so the rear seat is next on the list, and as you can tell, I raised the tunnel up. Probably came up about 2.5 inches on the front from where it was originally, and then there's pretty close to about 3 back here actually once it's all said and done. So I am going in and I am redoing the front of the seat to match up with this and be able to land over this. The springs are loaded into these perches, and I know that this whole center section basically is going to have to kind of come out, but the idea being is that I need to restructure this center section to support obviously any of the springs. And I'll admit, the center section's probably not going to be the most comfortable area to sit in, or I could do a double split seat, which I really don't want to do. I would like to keep and maintain the bench seat, and usually I don't have more than 2 people in the back seat anyhow. So reality is I just need to restructure the front of this, because we're going to be dropping this bar down below that line there, shall we say. And so I've got a couple of ideas already I've been working on. I knew that I had to unlatch the vinyl seat cover, the velour vinyl seat cover that's already currently on there, and made a cool discovery. I feel it was a cool discovery. There is the original. So I wish to God it was all still good. Kind of show you. I love finding little things like this, but look at that. How cool is that, right? So that is the original seats. My plan eventually is to go back to vinyl anyhow. I want to kind of get off the velour. I don't really like the velour that much, but I love this. Love this. I think that is so bitchin'. So is what it is. Unfortunately, it will get covered back up. Okay, so this is the plan that I've got going here. I'm gonna do a plate here, and then did a couple of one by stock here. And the idea being is I'm gonna weld the 1 by stock to these 2 bars here on the belly side of it. And what that'll allow me to do is that gives me a good platform where I could take this 1/2 inch stock and weld to that, and then up to the framework itself, and I can weld this all together. By doing that, what that'll allow me to do then, after that's all welded in place, is then I can cut out this section with all these bars, get all of that cleared out of there, and then I could take and actually drop I believe I could still drop this down to this and then re-weld it on the low end. So that's kind of the plan, you know. Okay, so we mounted the plate in, did the, you know, the 1x stock here, and then I've got 1/2 inch stock that I went from the base of that up to the actual metal framing that goes around the whole bottom half front of the seat. So now that's going to allow me, this is all tacked in and good, solid. So now I'm going to be able to go in and hack these edges, which will allow me to remove this and bring it lower to the plate. I'll also cut out these bars and this bar as well. Let's hope it doesn't kill too much of the structure. I don't think it will. I'm basically just trying to open up this whole valley because of how much this is going to go in. I'm going to leave this bar just for now, but I may have to take it off too. I don't know yet. I don't think it's, I don't know. I try not to remove as much as possible just for various reasons, you know, obviously for structural integrity and such and so forth. So anyhow, we'll see what happens here. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it, and let's do this. Okay, so we are cut, and I'm gonna go ahead and tack this into position. I've got a couple of good measurements. It seems to be, it flexed just a little bit, obviously, because, you know, this plate is the only thing that's technically holding it from, you know, bowing like that. So yeah, I get it. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and tack this back into position and see if that gets us, I believe, according to my measurements, if I did right, that will get me over my new hump. So here we go. Okay, so that went well. Got it tacked in. Kind of had to like squeeze the seat, shall we say, you know, kind of bow it. I basically kind of threw it on the ground and pushed against it as I tack welded it real quick, and then got it back up here and hit the rest of the welds real fast. And yeah, solid. It's back to solid. It's still structurally supported. And yes, notice the protection here. Yeah, so funny thing, the old 60-plus-year-old wool and burlap in there, you know, weird enough, likes to catch fire. Who would have thunk, right? So yeah, just went ahead and put this up, and then I kept using a glove that I had in my hand that was protecting as I was welding at the same time. So I fingers crossed we got through that okay without burning too much up. And here we go. We're gonna do a test fit. All right, it was a successful test. Yes. So the only thing I did have to do is I had to go ahead and take out this arch that was back here, brace that was between here and here. And then I cut the springs down in various levels because, as you can tell, it kind of pushes on the center section because that hump is so much higher now. When it's pushing, it's going to kind of push the center of the seat a little too high when it's in the car. So I kind of cut these. This is kind of my, you know, madness to my thinking sometimes, but I cut the two outside ones a little bit longer and then the two smaller ones shorter. So when it's sitting in the car in that hump, shall we say, I feel like that will still give it some spring in there. Now I may have to later on get you know, some memory foam or something. Heck, I even might have some here. I'll look around, but anyhow, I'll probably do some memory foam, kind of hide that in there and whatnots. Front side wise, you know, you can see how these are all linked and everything, but what I plan to do is I think I'm going to actually leave them just the way they are, because the bar's right there, right? And I'll be finishing up the material around that point, and it's so sad I had to cut the original material. I know, but anyhow, I'll redo this material, hog ring this around there, and then I'm just gonna kind of let these springs kind of free float in this area, because if I push them under this like they were originally, it put a lot of tension on there. But I'll know more when I sit it back in the car and kind of sit on it and see where it's at with everything. So worst case scenario, I will mount these back up under here. Might even put a tack weld in them to lock that in, and we'll see. Again, I don't want it to spring the hump so high that it's dead obvious there's something there, you know, or that I had to lift the floor pan or whatever. I'm trying to keep it as, you know, as cool as possible, shall we say. So total success here. I'm gonna go ahead and go ahead and finish up the rewrapping it, and we'll do another test fit and I'll show you what it looks like. Well, that's it. She is done. We are now on full air ride, 4-link suspension, and a big old monster C-notch. Interior's back in. The seat cover's there because my ass is still dirty, and I'm pulling it out for the first time in what, 5 months roughly. It's about pretty close to where it's at. Got a little bit of dust on her, but I'm okay. It's okay. Time to back this girl out. See what happens here. Hell yes, she is out and breathing. After 4 months and lots and lots of welding and all kinds of crap, this is what your garage will look like after you're done, and it used to be that pristine. This is what it looks like now. Congratulations, you're a fabricator. So I just dropped her down for the first time outside,